Thank you. In the fall of 2013, my mom bought me a tambourine. I know it's kind of a weird gift, right? Well, as you may remember from Darren's sermon 2 weeks ago, Miriam led the Israelite women in celebrating their exodus with a tambourine. My mom and I had attended a conference where the speaker talked about Miriam and how it might seem kind of odd for Miriam to grab her tambourine when she was fleeing her home. I mean, if I were fleeing my home, a tambourine's probably not the first thing that I'm going to grab. But perhaps Miriam had faith that she was going to get to use her tambourine, that she would have a reason to celebrate. As our conference speaker stated, when faith takes a journey, it packs a tambourine. So why did my mom buy me a tambourine? Well, earlier that year, my husband and I found out that I was pregnant for the first time. A few weeks later, we saw and heard our baby's heartbeat at our first ultrasound, and everything looked great. A few weeks after that initial ultrasound, we had another appointment. And at that appointment, the atmosphere in the room changed, and everything got really quiet. Our baby's heart, that had once looked so strong, was no longer beating. 4 days later, I had a procedure done to remove our baby, and I was sent home to heal, empty and brokenhearted. That spring day was the beginning of a long and difficult journey for us. Over the next 11 months, we had 2 more pregnancy losses. After our third loss came more appointments, more tests, and a season of infertility. As I worked through my grief, I dealt with feelings of jealousy and bitterness. So many people around us were having babies, and as happy as I truly was for them, I was very sad for us. Holidays, our baby's due dates, and our loss anniversaries were all difficult. I remember the quietness of our home feeling so very loud. I admit that church was a hard place to be. I sang up on this stage in both services week after week, and sometimes the words that I was singing were really more like a sermon to myself, reminding me of things that I knew to be true but that I needed to hear. The tambourine that my mother gave me as a symbol of hope and faith in that season sat in my car under the console as a reminder through the weeks, months, and years that followed. There were also many reminders of God's promises in the midst of my pain. I remember the day we found out about our first miscarriage. A friend showed up on our porch with cartons of ice cream. I remember after our second loss, our community group dropped off a card, flowers, and cookies for me at work. The reminder that I was not alone came at the perfect time. I remember sitting with another friend at Starbucks, tears just streaming down my face in public, as she just sat and listened and let me talk. After our first loss, I felt the Lord prompt me to start a ministry for other families who were experiencing the same loss. The story of Hannah in 1 Samuel stood out to me, and it became the namesake of our ministry. In 2013, with the help of First Baptist, the ministry of Hannah's Hope began. Through Hannah's Hope, we send hope boxes of tangible items to help families work through their grief in a healthy way. In doing this, we are extending the comfort of Christ and his hope to them in their sadness. The work of Hannah's Hope was redemptive and healing for me, bringing something beautiful out of our ashes. Because of God's provision, we are now a standalone nonprofit organization, and we have sent hope boxes to over 750 families in 40 states and around the world. In July of 2015, I found out that I was pregnant for a 4th time. Through God's kindness, our daughter was born in March of 2016. We named her Nora, which means light, and we knew that she would be a light in our family after a season of darkness. When it was time to leave the hospital after she was born, the fact that we were leaving with a living and healthy baby was not lost on me, and I cried many tears of gratitude. Then in January of 2018, our son Pax was born, healthy and whole. I am so grateful for the gifts that God gave us through our journey. The perspective I now have helps me understand that challenges in parenting are really more than anything blessings. I fully believe that my children get a better version of me because of what we went through. I also know that not every person's story has a happy ending, and that sometimes the redemptive part of our suffering is not realized until the other side of heaven. I know what it's like to feel like the hits just keep coming, and I know what it's like to have a hard time even knowing what to pray. But when my faith was suffering in the midst of our circumstances, I was reminded by a teacher that God doesn't just leave us high and dry and alone in our struggles. They said, yes, God works his purposes through the captivity. Yes, he uses the wilderness for good. But his story tells us that he is a promised land God. So whatever happened to that tambourine? Well, if you were to come to our house, you might be lucky enough to catch our little family band in action, and you better believe that that tambourine, a little worse for the wear, is part of the performance. My children don't yet fully understand what it represents, but as they grow up, that tambourine will serve as a reminder to them of the faithfulness of God and as a reminder to us that we serve a God who gives hope, redemption, and a reason to celebrate. Thank you.